Balancing Games with Ian Schreiber. Ian Schreiber is a professor at RIT, though at the time of writing this article, he was teaching at SCAD. Now, this article is part of several articles on an online course called Game Design Concepts, initially launched in 2009. We'll be looking at Level 16, which is focused on game design balancing. Ian Schreiber breaks down 3 ways that you could balance a video game, the first being transitive relationships, also known as cost curves. So here's an example from the popular card game Magic the Gathering. On the left-hand side, we have a unit, or card, which has a cost of 3 and a toughness of 1. On the right-hand side, we have a card which has a slightly higher cost of 4, but the toughness is also higher. So you can see the value proposition there. Spend a little bit more money, and hey, you know what? The toughness is also going to be higher as well. So this relationship, since they have a single resource, points, which are being allocated differently with respect to these different buckets, that's called a cost curve or a transitive relationship. Transitive, the word right there, it means that you can transfer the units between the different buckets here. So intransitive refers to a game where you might not have a resource like that. Popular example being rock, paper, scissors. So this takes many forms, but in a video game you might see it used as a combat triangle. So the video game RuneScape actually implements this, where you have the warrior, mage, and range classes. The warrior is pretty strong when it comes to fighting the mage, but the warrior is strong when it comes to fighting the ranger, but it's weak fighting the mage. And so that's the idea here, where if you don't necessarily have a resource, you could say that one unit is strictly better at fighting another unit, but it might be worse than fighting another unit, right? So that's the idea here of rock, paper, scissors, or intransitive relationship. Intransitive meaning there is not a resource which we can transfer between these different buckets. The last is fruity, which, okay, we've all heard this phrase, right? You can't compare them, man. They're apples and oranges. Well, that's the idea here, where we have units that are orthogonally differentiated. This is a term you'll hear a lot, orthogonal unit differentiation, where each unit has a unique value proposition. So in the game of chess, we'll be looking at the movements here. The knight moves straight, but then it makes a hook to the side. The rook always moves straight, and the bishop always moves at a diagonal. So if you were in a chess match in a particular scenario, which would be the best one to have? The answer is, it depends. Each one of these units comes in handy at different times. And so the idea here is that if the units are all different, it could be hard to compare them. It's an apples to oranges comparison. Now that's not to mean the units are all balanced. Okay, a game can be balanced even if the units that comprise it are not strictly equal with respect to their value proposition. So for example, in the game of chess, which is pretty close to balanced, you have the pawn. And the pawn is way worse than the rook. It's like the worst unit in the entire game. However, if you get the pawn all the way to the end, it could turn into a queen, which is a pretty unique value proposition. But even if it didn't, it could still be a compelling game because the two sides are balanced. And some sides have kind of shitty units like the pawn, but some sides have really powerful units like the queen, right? So just keep in mind, not every unit has to be perfectly balanced. You can have units that are stronger than others. It's just as long as they in unison work, you can have a balanced game. And with that in mind, you don't always need to create a balanced game. Sometimes some of the most fun games are asymmetrically balanced, where one team has a distinct advantage over the other. So in total, there are 3 ways that you could balance your game, as described by Ian Schreiber: transitive, intransitive, and fruity. In order to become a better game designer, you can consider using one or more of these mechanics in the game that you're currently trying to balance. And hey, you know what's a really great way to become a better game designer? You could subscribe to this YouTube channel, where similar videos to this one will be coming to you soon. So, hope to see you there, and thanks for checking out this video.